Welcome back, Kim.
Hello.
So you're the first one in our romance series this time. I want to start this series by asking you, are you or would you define yourself as a romance reader?
No.
No. So how did you find this one?
An old friend of mine, well, she'd already read them. She wanted me to read them so we could talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
And she knew that there was a character in there that I would really like. And she was right. And so I absorbed them all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tales of Our Times. This is a show where we discuss the stories that move us, what makes them so meaningful, and why others could or should find meaning in them as well. This is not a spoiler-free show, so bear that in mind as you continue to listen. We tackle books, movies, podcasts, and more. Where there's a story, there's a reason to read. And this is the first episode of our August theme. I guess it's technically the second episode, but this is the first full guest episode of our August theme. Tentatively calling it Sultry Summer.
Ooh.
Or Spicy Summer. I haven't decided on one yet. I'm so bad at picking
I like
one.
Spicy Summer.
Spicy Summer. If you're somebody out there who doesn't quite know what that means, in this particular context, that means that it has a higher content of
Adult themes.
Adult theme. Well, I'm just going to come out and say sexual themes and encounters in it. Before that, though, Kim, of course, we have been graced with your presence on several different episodes. Is there anything you would like to say to introduce yourself?
Oh, again.
Not a romance reader.
No, not a romance
Not
reader.
usually.
Not usually. I like romance, but I don't like books that are specifically meant to be romance.
Would you say that you prefer a romantic subplot
Yes.
rather than a romantic I guess I want to call it an A-plot, main plot.
Yeah, main plot. If it's a main plot of the story, I'm not as engaged. I don't really care because I need other things to occur around it, and there has to be a driving force with it. That's sort of what I always grew up with.
Yeah, if there's romance involved, it's a subplot.
It's secondary to the plot.
Right. I think romance stories, what I like about them is that they generally have a more narrow focus, right?
Yes.
It's more of a interactive, personal story. Whatever else you might say about that. But it doesn't have the big action that often brings people to a box office.
I can't stand chick flicks, and I can't even read. Generally, I don't even read things that are not fairy tale-esque. It just doesn't hold my attention.
Yeah, I do like chick flicks, but I haven't watched one for a long time. So this one, though, let's talk about the book we're going to discuss today. It actually does have fairy tale elements to it. It's right there in the name. Do you want to introduce it?
It's called A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas.
So I think if you're in the book world or
Book talk or whatever.
Book talk, yeah, whatever your connection is, you might have heard about it. I think it is pretty well known, and it does have a certain following and kind of a reputation that goes with it. So, but before that, would you say the Court of Thorn and Roses?
Thorns.
Sorry. Third time. I'm glad you told me.
Let's go with ACOTAR.
ACOTAR.
That's what everybody calls
you're
it on
right,
Book
You're
Talk.
right. That is what people call it. Okay. Would you say that ACOTAR fits into any subgenre of romance, or are there any tropes that it's especially well known for?
So the first two books
Yeah.
would fall into enemies to lovers.
Okay.
And I have to say it that way if I don't want to be spoilerific.
People
But there are going to be spoilers.
This is going to be a big spoiler thing.
But that even having said that, it works either way. So yeah, definitely enemies to lovers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then luckily that trope is pretty self-explanatory.
It also kind of does the fated mates, but not in the apparently weird fanficky way with the werewolves and stuff or something. I've heard weird things. Not judging. It's a very different brand.
brands. So well, I don't know if we're going to get into that later this month. We might, but who knows? Who knows where we'll be taken. But so there is also an element of whether or not you're destined for somebody.
Yes.
And so then the last thing right before we get into it is do you think that this book has a certain reputation to it? And if so, what is that?
The last 100 pages of each of her books will destroy your soul. She's really good at plot twists.
Okay.
And doing things kind of against the grain of the genre compared to the ones I have read. She definitely does the plot twists quite well.
Okay, well, I'm so excited actually to get into this. So this is your final spoiler warning. But I actually think, here's what I will say about romance. I think that oftentimes, even if you know the twist is coming, it is still fun to read.
Yes.
Because you have to see it happen.
Yes.
Right? Like if you've cracked a romance novel, you know they're gonna get together, but you don't know how. And
yes,
I think
and that's the fun.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
part of the great game of reading this genre. So, Kim, could you give us a summary of what happens in, I'm going to do it this time, A Court of Thorns and Roses?
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
the first book is about a young girl named Farah. She's about 19, typical young adult sort of thing, even though this is not young adult. But she's a human girl. And there's been a long time ago, like I want to say 100 years before, there's a wall put up between the fairy realm and the human world. It's part of a treaty. It's a whole thing.
So this is a world where like the fae folk, so to speak, and the humans, they live in the same world.
Yes.
They know about each other.
Yes.
That part's not a surprise.
That's right.
But there is a wall.
Yep.
Everybody knows about this invisible wall that does
Yes.
separate them.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct. And they don't cross the wall. And she kills a fairy. That's like,
Whoa.
she doesn't realize it. Her family's poor. She has 2 useless sisters that I don't like. She's the youngest, and she takes care of them. And her dad, they've lost all their money. They were rich.
Kind of like a Cinderella story.
A little
like
bit.
The actual beginning of Cinderella where it's like, I'm a rich merchant. I lost it all.
Yeah, the mom's dead, the dad's broke, the sisters are useless, so
got
the youngest
nothing going
goes
for
out
her.
and does
Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
and they don't help at all. So she's the one going out and hunting and selling what she hunts and cooking and da-da-da-da-da. And so she goes out, it's winter, and she kills a wolf.
Okay.
But she's not convinced it is a wolf. She's pretty sure it's a fairy, but that's a bigger meal than a deer.
Yeah, I mean, it's also winter, so like I
Yes.
see the
And
caveat
she
that's
can
been
sell
set
the
up.
pelt and everything like
yeah.
that. But the humans have a very poor impression of the fae. So in the off chance it is a fae, she's not sorry if she kills it.
Yeah.
And then later, another fairy shows up completely in beast form and basically takes her away. So it's sort of a retelling of Beauty and the Beast in that regard.
Okay.
She takes responsibility. She stands up.
Yeah.
And anything to protect her family that does absolutely nothing for her in return. And I have a lot of feelings about this. Can you tell?
I love this.
But so I actually really like Farah. I liked her from the beginning, and which is not usual for me with books like this or stories like this. And I also, on a second reread, have now realized I relate to her a lot more than I.
Quick question. Was she the character that your friend was like, you're
No.
going to like her?
No.
Oh, boy. Okay, so please go on.
Yeah.
So she gets taken to the fairy world.
She does. The fairy world's called Prithian.
Okay.
And the fairy that takes her is named Tamlin. So through the course of it, she falls in love with him.
With Tamlin.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then, of course, it's, got to have a tragedy in it and stuff. So eventually she has to go back. And she doesn't want to stay back because she's worried about what's going on because he tells her there's a blight happening in the Fae world. And they are trying to stop it, but they don't have a way to. And she she falls in love with him. She wants to help. And then he sends her away because he's scared that she'll get affected, air
That the
quotes,
blight
by
is
the
gonna
blight.
get
Yeah.
her.
But then she's worried about her family, so she wants to send them away and da-da-da-da. Anyway, but her family, shockingly, her terrible eldest sister, Nesta, is like, you should go back and you should go get your Fae guy and stuff. But when she goes back, he's at the Spring Court, and she later finds out he is the High Lord of the Spring Court. And she's like,
Oh, because this was going to be my question.
yes,
So
there's courts.
I have a question.
Yes.
Then for everybody else. So he is a prince or a lord.
He's the
in
High
court.
Lord. He's the High Lord.
So does that in
each
this
court has
Fae-
they're kind of like kings, but there's not a king of the Fae world.
Okay. So you can't have like a quote unquote king, but he's like, I am the big boss.
Of this court,
That court is
the
again,
Spring Court.
and she didn't know that before this.
Yes.
So, but she was effectively. So it is Beauty and the Beast. She was effectively
Yes.
dating the de facto king of the Spring Court. But he's not a king because there's no kings.
There's no kings. It's just the High Lord.
Okay. So he's like, you have to get out of here. It's not safe.
Yeah,
and then
because
she's
of
like,
the blight.
I'm coming back, even though there's a blight.
Yes.
Oh, you're a king. That's convenient for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So she finds out that he's the High Lord before she's taken away and stuff, but she's like, oh my God. But so like they call it a blight because all of the Fae in his court have masks and they can't take these masks off. They're like masquerade masks. And there's a villain in it that is right up your alley, and her name is Amarantha, which is an excellent
It's a pretty good name. I like that.
Love that. And she's the one that caused the blight.
Okay.
But then when she comes back, no one's there. He's gone. She can tell there's been a fight and stuff. And then the person that was at the court kind of taking care of her, her name's Alice, tells her, actually, it's not a blight. Prithian has been cursed.
Oh, yes.
In very different ways. So all of the High Lords got tricked out of their powers by Amarantha.
Okay.
And she has her eyes set on Tamlin. And he doesn't want her, so she cursed his entire court at a masquerade party, and that's why they're all stuck in these masks that they can't take off. And
Amarantha wants to like marry him.
She wants him for herself. She has basically made herself queen of Prythian, even though there's not a queen or king of Prythian.
Right. Okay.
And she wants him to be her man.
Yeah.
So she cursed him for 50 years, and he had 50 years to break the curse by getting a human girl to kill a fairy with hate in her heart to fall in love with him.
Oh, so when she killed the wolf, he was like, it's all coming together.
Yes.
Yes.
50 years later.
I love this.
Yeah. And there's like a lot of other things that are underlying that keeps him from trying to pursue her at first. So when she is determined to find him, so she has to go to a place called Under the Mountain.
She's like, well, unfortunately, you succeeded, and I do love you, and that means that I'm going to go move heaven and earth to take care of this.
And so she goes under the mountain to find him, and then like she gets captured naturally, you know, and Amarantha throws her a bone because she thinks this is fun, and she wants to force Tamlin into giving in to her. So she gives her an opportunity to make a bargain with her, which you're not supposed to do. She's been warned not to bargain with fairies.
Right.
And
bargaining with fairies is kind of like bargaining with the devil in terms of like they're usually smarter than you.
Yes.
They have a bigger plan that you can't see.
Yes. And loopholes and stuff. And she's so stressed. She just desperate to save him. Yeah. She makes the bargain. She wants her to do 3 tasks, 3 trials. And to prove her love to Tamlin. And if she succeeds, then she'll free the Spring Court, just the Spring Court, and like free them of their mask, their curse, and they can all go home and live happily ever after. Or
it's like Psyche and Eros.
Yes. Or she can solve a riddle. And if she solves the riddle, it'll instantly be broken, the curse. And the wording, she realizes after she agrees, is very different. And she's like, I better solve this riddle.
Yeah.
But she's illiterate, which has a big impact, I feel, on her ability to be able to solve that riddle because she obviously can't read.
Can't read it.
And so...
And she's illiterate.
Well, no, it's not that she has to read it, but one of her trials ends up being that she has to read a question and answer the question.
Wow, rude.
Or Lucian will die.
Wow.
But the enemies to lover comes into this, not with Lucian, but with somebody she meets earlier on in the book named Rhysand, who she finds out is High Lord of the Night Court.
Yes.
And that is the character my friend was like, you're going to like this guy. And that's, for me, when the book really picks up. Because he comes in after her first trial and helps her and makes a bargain with her. That he has the second bargain, which becomes the Hades and Persephone trope. She has to go see him once a month.
Okay.
And spend, I think, 2 weeks with him.
Yeah.
And then she starts bargaining backwards because she does not like him. She ends up going back to the Spring Court with Tamlin because she saves the day. Without giving too much of the underlying, like, third trial, she solves the riddle, basically.
Okay, so she is able to solve the riddle.
As a Hail Mary sort of thing.
Yes.
And Tamlin kills Amarantha. Okay, she goes back to the Spring Court with him. And but she dies in the process.
Wow.
She gets her neck broken by Amarantha.
Wow.
And all of the High Lords are there because they're stuck there.
Yes.
And so in an unprecedented turn of events, they all come together and give her a shard of their power to bring her back to life. And she comes back as a fae.
They're sitting like, okay, fair is fair. You helped all of us, so it is the least we can do to help you. But now she's a fae.
She's in a brand new fae body, doesn't know what to do with herself. And that's sort of where the book ends.
So at the end of this story then, Farah, the main character, is still together with Tamlin.
Yes.
Okay.
But she has her bargain with Rhys.
So she still visits Rhys.
She will have to. Yeah, she will have to.
She doesn't yet.
Not yet. It doesn't. It doesn't start till the next book starts.
The next book. Okay. So her trials in terms of like the relationship aspect of her life are just kind of like opening up.
Yes.
Which is wild given that everything that just happened in this one book.
Yes.
But so, okay. But that's where this one ends.
Pretty much,
This is fun. Okay.
Yeah, she stays in the Spring Court, and she's got PTSD hardcore from dying. And going through everything she did for Tamlin. And he's very oblivious of it, but she knows she's going to, the following month, have to start cashing in on that Rhysand, who she hates.
Okay. So this is fun. This is good. So, okay. Did reading this book kind of change your mind about romance in general? Or did it like reinforce something? I guess like how did this series kind of affect you in that way?
Neither of those things happened to me, but what it did for me was it got me back into reading, which I found is actually common with a lot of people that have read the books.
This series specifically?
The series specifically got a lot of people back into reading because like last year I read all of her books in like a month, I think.
I remember when you picked up this series, it was like every day I saw you and we were seeing each other at least like once a week.
Yeah.
Sometimes twice a week. And I'd be like, hey, how's this series? She's like, oh, I'm on the next book.
Yep.
Oh, I've actually finished that one.
I read most of them in a night. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I read Court of Wings and Ruin in 2 nights.
So it did get you back into
it did, but like
reading.
One of the driving forces with the book for me is less the romance aspect of it, but the characters themselves. Because like I wouldn't have kept going if it hadn't been for Lucian in the first book, and I stayed engaged because of Rhysand. And
the new characters that kept being introduced.
And then when you get to like the second book, you're introduced more to, because she has to go to his court, right, and see through the reputation that his court has. And that's really cool.
Yeah. And I think to that point, you even mentioned, like, when you first started reading, that you weren't expecting to like the main character as much as you did.
Yeah, that was.
But you got into it. So I think that's also another one where, like, adding that to the list, like, you found the main character to be a lot more
relatable. Yeah, which is something I haven't found in a really long time.
Yeah. And sometimes it's a hit or a miss. I find it interesting because I think a lot of books, like I already said at the beginning, like, romance books, I think, tend to be more interpersonal. But for that reason, also, the lead character is always very interesting for who they're written as. Because a lot, they are trying to get you to, like, put yourself in their shoes, like, to relate to them, right? So it's really important to be able to try and key in on aspects.
Yeah, which is actually a problem I have with like that genre, because they're often written in first person, and I don't really like first person because I struggle with that perspective.
Too personal?
It's too personal, but the way that this one was written was more of like to me, it's more of like a personal account of it. Like
kind of like a diary or something.
Almost like that. And it was not written in that way, but that's sort of the way that I went with it to get through it for my friend's sake, because I only read it for my friend. I would never have read it otherwise.
Yes.
One way, I just never would have.
It's not a book
thought
you
of it or
picked up by
something.
yourself.
And I'm glad I did. I'm really glad I did, because the character I love the most is one that reminds me of a person I love very dearly. And then that person came back to me recently, so that was really cool.
Yay.
You know, like it's kind of kismet in that way.
Your own kind of
circle. Yeah, and so that made it more personal for me, because I don't talk to that friend anymore. We had a falling out, and I was worried I would not want to touch the world or anything again. But I've been sharing it with that person, and that's been really fun. And,
Yay.
It's so kind of helped me find a piece of myself that I lost for a long time. And that's helped me see parts of myself that I haven't been able to see in a really long time too.
Would you feel comfortable to speak about that on the radio? Like, what do you mean by that?
No, it's fine. Because I grew up kind of raising myself on fiction because of like my family life and stuff, right? My dad was gone a lot, and my brother is handicapped, so my mom focused on him. So I raised myself on books and television and films. And so I've found over the past decade, I've been really struggling to find me again, because there was a person that I used to be that identified with a lot of characters regularly, like Buffy, Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel, Gamora, Mantis. But like, I love them and stuff, and I would write them, but I stopped identifying with a lot of female characters because the person who I was kind of lost, I feel, and I didn't realize that. And I was writing more male characters and stuff because I didn't like the way other people were writing them, but also sort of searching for something that I lost a long time ago too. And now it's come back to me, and I feel like I can see those parts of myself again, like the dreamer that I used to be. I think there was something more to it that I just didn't see first. And on a second reread with my person now, I see it now.
Oh, good. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Well, Kim, thank you so much for joining me. If you were to advise someone to read ACOTAR, what's that one pitch that you would give them? Like a one-phrase pitch for why they should read it.
Love will surprise you.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, thank you. Okay. So thank you so much for joining me today, Kim. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Please join us next week for some more spicy summer reads.
There is spice in the book. I totally forgot about it, though.
Yeah, we didn't even touch on it, so it actually ended up being okay. But I hope you all enjoyed listening. This has been Tales of Our Time on Radio Taiwan International. I'm your host, Amanda Stevens, with my wonderful guest, Kim Gordon.
Bye-bye.
And I hope you enjoyed learning more about A Court of Thorns and Roses. Thorns? No, this time I'll do it for real. A Court of Thorns and Roses. Love will surprise you. A Tale of Our Time. We'll see you next time.